We're going to do this experiment here, which I think you will find hopefully impactful. And then we're going to ask all of the questions that you could possibly imagine. I want you to be thinking about what those questions could possibly be so that you have those questions in advance. Imagine that you had the world's largest mastermind and you needed to answer any technical question you had, any marketing question you had, any branding question you had, any persuasion question you had, any mass media question you had, any traffic building question that you had, anything that you wanted to know, the expertise for that question is available to you in this room. And in many occasions, those people could charge you legitimately thousands and thousands of dollars for that information, but they're going to give it away to you. I do not want you to squander this resource. So I want you to think in advance, what do I want to ask? Try to be respectful of the time, right? Because there are a lot of people here and they could have conceivably a lot of questions. And although we could go till midnight doing this, I want you to be able to network tonight and do some other things too. So, and then we'll close it down. And then the only thing that we'll have left is in the morning. You know, I wasted an entire 2 minutes this morning because I was there and it was until 6:32 before anybody walked in to talk to me. So you could have had 2 minutes. I'm just kidding you. I'm just saying that I crave the time with you. I will be there no matter how, and this is the point where I get to total burnout, you know, because I will work it at the end. Now I promise, I will tell you just for me personally what's going to happen, and I'll tell Frank too. I have a huge debt to Frank, right? And Frank has come to every JV Alert Live in the world, ever. And he and I hardly ever get to connect at JV Alert Live. It's just a fact because we do mastermind on a regular basis and we hardly ever get to check. So I and Frank are going out to dinner, and then I'm coming back here and I will work every end of the candlestick until it burns entirely out. And I will be back up at 6:30, ready to go. Do not waste 2 minutes. No. Actually, we had a wonderful group of people that came in. I started with one table of 4, and then every 2 minutes we kept adding another table, and we had a great conversation, great time, until I had to run over here. So tomorrow, as you get up, I am sure that I will be there well until it turns into the networking lunch, okay? So I will be here. And then I will be here actually into the afternoon. I think I've forgotten exactly what time my flight goes, but when people go away, I'll probably eventually say I'm headed for the airport. Or I'll grab somebody who wants to spend that last minute and I'll say, take me to the airport. And we'll talk on the way or something like that, because I have a flight out, I think maybe 5 something or something like that. So that means that I have to get out of here by 3 or something like that. So if you want to spend time with me, that's usually a very, very good time to spend time. But I'll work tonight. I'll be hanging around. Frank and I will go someplace and we will have a little bit of one-on-one time. And then the second that I get back, if he wants to release me, then I will keep going and I'll talk to whoever wants to talk to. Yeah. You can negotiate with Frank on how quickly he gets me back. Not that it's all that wonderful. The joy of you being here is in these people out here. You know, I told you that I would have 3 conversations with you over the course of this event. And the first conversation, I talked a little bit about impact. I told you a little bit of my story. I told you just a hint of some of the things that I dream about. And I told you at the beginning, I said, I want you to notice what your life is right this instant, and where it gets to by the end of the event. I want you to notice the impact that other people have. And I predicted to you that we would have some difference, that you would not be exactly the same that you were when you first got here, that we would have some impact. And that's what the impact story is all about, isn't it? You know, a story is a story of the way that we move from one place and we transfer. Remember how we were talking about the internet being a medium? And actually Bob Berg talked about that in his thing, how money was a medium. It's a way to get resources from one place to another. A transfer device, that's what money is. You know, it's a transfer device. It's a way for me to get love and knowledge and insights. It's a way for me to be able to reach out and cure people, to better their lives, to better their health, to better their standards of living. Money is a powerful transferring force, right? I value that. In case the message has ever gotten off here, that I've been sending out the wrong signals, let me tell you that I really value money as a transferring medium, because I believe it's not spread around exactly, entirely accurately to the best possible people who can make the best use of it. That money is sitting in clumps, the resources is sitting in clumps, and not necessarily where it can be used the best. So what I would like to do is get it into the hands of the people that can best utilize that to make this a better place, right? To do good. Now, we all have a story, right? We talked about impact and what a difference people make on each other, right? We talked about how it's the small things that make a difference. Usually not some huge thing that happens, but maybe some small thing. And I talked about the importance of measuring your impact. That if we do not measure impact, that we do not value it. We think that what we do doesn't matter, that it doesn't make any difference, when it makes a huge difference what we do. So here's what I would like to do. I would like to illustrate in a way that's a story, and that will hopefully be part of a video story that kind of tells the tale of impact. So you can be a part of this story, because we're going to start at a beginning, and of course, who knows where it began. You know, the impact story began at the dawn of creation. The impact story began. But it started for me in that moment, remember? I talked about it a little bit before, and I talked about the fact that I realized for me that I could make a difference in somebody else's life. And then, as life went on, I learned a little bit. I gained a little bit of knowledge about that. I saw how things interacted. And then I met a couple of very important people. And one of those people, just one of those people, was a guy by the name of Frank Sousa. Now here's the connect here. Ken McArthur realized that he could have an impact on somebody else, and that what he did made a difference. And that if he applied certain things to it, that he could have a bigger difference. And I talked to a guy by the name of Frank Sousa. Okay, so here's a connection point. Ken McArthur, a little teeny piece of knowledge, and here's the other connection point, Frank Sousa, right? So I'm going to illustrate for you. We have two connection points. We have what happened, the impact, right? Right here in the middle between me and Frank Sousa is the impact. And actually that impact is measurable. So here's the way I would like to see things. I like to see the fact that these relationships are interconnected. And that because I had some kind of an impact in a small conversation upon Frank Sousa, that his life changed in some kind of a measurable kind of a way. And I want to talk about the measurable parts of it. What happened that made a difference? Maybe it's money, because that's a measuring device. Maybe it's in a life changed. Maybe it's in somebody was touched. Maybe it was in hundreds of people were touched. Maybe it was simple as a life was saved. Who knows what that impact was? But I'm beginning to bet you that there are more than one connection points, and that Frank actually has a connection to somebody else somewhere in this room. And that maybe I've gone back and I've touched more than one person, maybe more than one Frank, right? So I'd like to explore those stories. So here's where I'm going to start. I'm going to start with my story of how I sat on a couch with Frank Sousa and Sterling Valentine. And we talked about our dreams. It was a hotel couch. It was an ordinary couch. 3 guys sitting on a couch. It was in the middle of the wee hours of the networking. It was after the event was over. And we just sat there and talked about what our dreams were and how we could maybe work together and how exciting it was that we met each other and that we related to each other, and we saw the fact that we could do so much more if we worked together than if we worked separately. And I touched Frank Sousa in some way because Frank Sousa is still here. And I would like Frank Sousa to come up here, and I would like him to say a couple of things, and then I want to go on from there. So I'm going to have Frank come on up, and I want him to tell about how that little tiny moment affected his life. And then I would like him to do 2 things. I would like you to say, this is where it was, this is where the contact was, right? Here was what the impact was in between, and here is a result or another connecting point, because I want you to see some of the connecting points. So we're starting arbitrarily at one connecting point, and I want you to see the relationships. And then maybe Frank will name somebody else, and maybe that person has a story of how that might have spread. And I want to do a couple of things. We're going to go on. If it stalls, then maybe we will go back to another connecting point. Or maybe you will see it suddenly get so big that we can't handle and we just have to cut it off. But I want you to see the connecting points and how from one moment, because I guarantee you, I can tell you the impact on me right now, just in small, small way, that none of you, not one person here, would be here right now if Frank and I did not sit on that couch.
Wow. I don't know how to respond to that. He didn't warn me that this was going to happen. So I really, there is one thing I want to kind of back up just a little bit, and that is when I got started, and something that I think everybody needs to understand is you can't do this on your own. The way that you become a success in anything is you surround yourself with good people. And when I got started, I came out with this really cool software program. It's called the Secret Money Generator. But I didn't know anything at all about marketing. And I went to an event just like this, met a man, stand up Mark Hendricks, and I showed that to him. Mark thought that was pretty cool, and he wanted to partner with me. He wanted to market it for us, and it was a very, very successful product. Mark got me started, internet marketing. I owe you a lot, Mark. Thank you. Yeah. So then he says, what do you want me to cover from here, Ken? I'm kind of lost at what you want to talk about.
Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to start at one person.
Okay.
I want you to tell me your personal impact of what that meeting, how that impacted you personally. And then I would like you to identify another person that you think might have some kind of connection to this, and they can tell maybe the impact, or somebody that you feel that you've impacted, and they can go on from there.
I see a couple people in the room grinning and smiling. Thank you, guys. How did that impact me? Well, first off, I wanted to fly across the country to meet the great Ken McArthur. I'd been on his JV alert. I'd seen his picture. I'd listened to a lot of teleseminars that he did, and I wanted to get to know the guy. And so that's what I did. We sat on the couch. JV Alert Live came into existence. I began to go around and share and visit with people and stuff like that. I met Mike Koenigs. Mike was a brilliant, he still is, a brilliant video guy. And we sat down at a dinner, a networking type of a dinner, and in fact it was Dave and Buster's in Philadelphia. I remember the restaurant. And he was telling me about all the really cool stuff that he was doing with video. And, you know, I'm just going, wow, he's getting all these Google listings. He's getting all this traffic coming into a site. And then he starts telling me about the problems that involved. And I thought to myself, you know, I've got a little expertise. I can solve his problem. He can solve my problem. So he taught me all about video. We set up, we laid it out on a napkin. We built Traffic Geyser. Traffic Geyser went out there, and it's grown. We don't need to go into figures. It's grown very, very big. Pretty much every internet guru out there, most of them use it and are very, very happy with it. So I guess the next question is who I don't know where you want me to start with this. Okay. Like I said, he didn't warn me about this.
That's all right. Now,
so I'm just playing this by ear.
So here's what I want to do. I want to show the connection. And I would have, how many people in this room feel that maybe Frank has impacted them in some way?
Oh my goodness.
So what you have to do is, out of those points of light right there, you have to pick one. Raise your hands again if Frank Sousa has had an impact.
I can't pick one, Ken. I'm going to let you pick one.
Okay.
I love you all.
I will pick one for you.
Well, I'm humbled. I don't know what to say here.
Because Frank Sousa and I sat on a couch. He impacted all of those people that just raised their hand. One of those people was Jeff Wellman. Would you come up here? Just one person. And I want you to stay here.
Give me back the microphone. Give me back the microphone. You already got one.
Yeah, but Jeff's going to get it now. You don't get to say much more. We already saw. Did you see just for a moment? Did you look around the room? Raise your hands again. Raise your hands again if you've been touched by Frank Sousa personally, in a personal way. And look, folks, look. Okay.
I guess you get the microphone.
You get the microphone.
So, I was impacted by Frank Sousa through them guys sitting on the couch. This is where we're going with this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it, Frank. We got it now. I think we've got it. I ended up going down in May of 2007. My son basically told me that he said, I want you to come to this live event. It wasn't actually JV Alert Live, it was Get Your Product Done. But Get Your Product Done was, I'm sure, generated through all of that because these guys sat on the couch and because of their relationship. And I was there to basically learn how to do internet marketing. My son was basically teaching me. We were doing a crash course. We were going to launch a product. And when I got there, my intention was really to stand behind these pillars that they had. They had these big pillars in the room. I see he doesn't do that no more. And my intention was to stand behind those pillars because I really didn't see how I would fit in with these guys. they were making all this money, and I was losing my home. It's like, what in the world, what's up with that? So, and I was sitting there kind of quiet, not really saying anything, and my son's telling me, you got to interact with these people. I'm like, I don't know them. I don't want to do that. And Ken McArthur goes, is there anybody new here? The first time, and I'm like, raising my hand so nobody hopefully noticed. He goes, well, if you're new here, I want you to basically go find somebody and that has been here. I want you guys that have been here for a while, that you've been doing this, I want you to pick somebody, and I want you to set them down with you. I don't want them sitting off by themselves. Well, I was fortunate enough to...
I grabbed him.
He did. He just like, come, you're over here. So I got stuck with, well, not really stuck with.
We understand.
I got stuck with Frank Sousa, and I looked at Frank. I'm like, well, who is this guy? Okay, I think he don't look like he makes much money, so I'll go sit with him. Well, then as we're talking away, I'm like,
the truth comes out.
we're sitting there talking away, and I'm like, wow, this guy's probably not the person I should, because I don't know what he's saying. He's sitting there telling me about this Web 2.0 stuff and video stuff, and he's talking about traffic guys. And here, do this. And I'm like, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. But it was like there was this connection between us. And I was like, I like this guy. He's pretty cool, though. I'm going to sit here and pretend that I'm knowing what he's talking about. But since then, we've created a really great relationship. He's an awesome man. He is there to help you, just as Ken is. It's, their hearts are there. And I was able to take that and say, that's what I want to be like. If I can figure this stuff out, that's what I want to be like, to be able to give back to people. And he hasn't really affected me in any way. No. So, but anyways, we had actually attended another event that Frank was at, and that's actually where I was going because Michelle told me I couldn't send her up. And we were going to, I met this, there's a couple people I could, but I'm partnering with a person now that I've met, and it was through Frank that I met this young man. Awesome man. He's got the same kind of heart. It's amazing how when you connect with people and they've got the same kind of heart, you say, okay, it's supposed to be like this. This is what's happening. And I met him for the first time, and I'm like, one of these days we're going to have to do something together. I didn't know what it was. I just met him, didn't know what he was doing, except he had a dog site. And Petco. And but now we are actually doing something, and I'd like Paul Counts to come up here, because this young man touched, I don't know if I had any kind of effect on his life, but he's going to have to pretend that I did because I just called him up here. But he had an effect on my life just from the meeting that, there's Michael Savoy. He was at the first time. It's like, there's each one of you I could call up here because every time I meet somebody at an event, you have an effect on my life. But Paul was the next one, so he's the next guy that's going to have to.
Just to get an idea here, how many people have been touched by something or some interaction with Jeff Wellman? Look around the room for that. Where did that spread? Where did that spread? Let me just tell you, as an idea, he talked a little bit about it. He told you a tiny bit of the story, right? He talked about, he has a history as a dairy farmer, and he'd gone through a lot of stuff. And I'll tell you, he wasn't too sure that he wanted to be in this. And I kind of, as he said, in the video, I kind of pushed him off the cliff and made him jump into it. But he has touched so many lives. It was not so long ago when I was sitting at a JB Alert Live, and he came up to me with a letter from a young man. Tell that story just real quick, because this is outside of us, okay? This is not just spreading from us, but tell the story of the young man. And he got an email basically from this young man at JV Alert Live, like how long after you had been?
I started in May, and this was at Long Beach, so it was October of 2007.
There you go, from May to October.
And anyways, we were at Long Beach, and Ken was kind of, I think he was just kind of talking about the impact thing. It was just kind of generating at that time a little bit. Yeah. And we were talking about it, and I went back to my room during one of the breaks, or lunchtime, I don't remember when it was. I went back to my room, happened to open up my email, and then there was one that just kind of caught my attention, and I had just launched a product that really did not do what I wanted it to do. It actually did more than what I needed it to do. But and I got this young man sent me an email, and he's basically pouring his heart out to me. He was 17 years old. He had a father that basically had went through some of the same things that I'd done. He had lost his job. He was working at some gas station and he's like telling me the story about how his father is like shows no emotion, no nothing. It's just like he's like lost in life and doesn't really care anymore because he's doing things that he doesn't want to do. And I did this product called Millionaire Boss that most people probably never even heard of.
I did.
And well, that's because I sent it to you. But anyways, I had this picture. I did a video because my history was dairy farming, and I did this. I went out to the cows, and we did this video with the cows and stuff. Was talking about kind of tying it with my life. And this kid came across my sales page because he was on my list, and he read this. He read that. He was sitting there listening to the video, and he was like, "I was amazed, first of all, that somebody would put cows on their sales page. First time I ever seen it. Header graphics and all. There was the cows and the dairy farm." And he was like, "I started listening to your story." He says, it was totally my father. He says, and I'm 17 years old. I'm sitting here bawling and stuff and feeling all these emotions for my father and stuff. And he says, and I told my father, because he wanted to do internet marketing himself. And he'd been trying to get his father to agree. And his father's like, stay away from all that stuff. And he wanted his dad to kind of get involved. He says, so I told my father, he says, you got to come and see this. And he refused to see it. He said, I'd have told you I don't want it. He said, so he turned the video up on that thing as loud as it could go and played my story while his father, he says, and at the end of that, he says, my father turned to me, he says, he gave me a hug the first time I can ever remember in 17 years. And he said, he was basically said, I want you to know that you affected our life. You touched our life in a way that you cannot even ever dream of. He said, I have a relationship with my father now. He says, for the first time I can ever remember. He said, because of that video that you put on there and telling your story, and it affected us. You guys have an impact. You don't believe, you don't even know sometimes. I'd have never known that if he wouldn't have told me about that. You don't know who you have an impact on. You don't know whose lives you touch and affect. Because so many people will just quietly go on. They're touched by your life, but they're never going to share it. Right. But it gets paid back. So have that impact.
Well, I've got to say, Jeff, Frank, Ken, everybody up here has had a huge impact on my life. And I got to say thank you to Mark Hendricks for getting Frank Souza into marketing, because through that, Frank Souza was attending one of your events, and I was actually going out to see my then girlfriend, now wife. And I was sitting next to Frank Souza on an airplane. And it's through that connection that he and I just got to know each other a little bit more through email. Frank's the guy that always encouraged me to go to a live event. And so I went to a live event. I was all excited to tell Frank there. I saw Frank there. That's where I met Jeff Wellman. It was through that event that Frank got me to go to my first JV Alert Live with Ken. And in like a matter of a year, I was on stage speaking at JV Alert because the business had grown that much. And it could all be, brought back to these guys sitting together, Mark Hendricks getting Frank Souza into marketing. It's amazing how God works and ties everything together. And these guys have had a huge impact on my life. And I've got a joint venture going with Jeff Wellman and Frank Souza. And I can't say enough about them. I mean, they have really impacted my life, tremendously. And my whole family appreciates it, and it's great. So, but let's see. Do you want me to call somebody else up? Well, I want to call Michael Angier up. He's a guy I met at JV Alert, and he may not know it, but he's had a big impact in my life. I'd followed some of his stuff before, and he's a very very wise businessman and a very successful person. And this event, I got to know him a little bit more. And he's a guy that I also have a joint venture with as well. So you kind of get, because through JV Alert, I now have 3 major joint venture partners, all because these guys sat on a couch, Mark Hendricks got Frank Souza into marketing. You could always relay everything back. It's just, it's amazing how that works and how it ties everything together. So.
Thanks. Yeah, I just sent out a Twitter this morning that said that we've been following a brilliant young man lately, and that you all should follow him too, and that's this guy right here, Paul Counts. So that came about less than a year ago, and Paul sat next to Don and I, and he made a couple of suggestions, had a few conversations with him. I said, this guy's really brilliant. So we need to become friends with this person, and that was really easy. And you're right, we did our first joint venture, probably many more. So there's already several $100, several $1,000 done there. And I can point to every JV Alert Live and say, that was worth at least $10,000 within a month. Every one. And usually it's worth much more than that, just in terms of relationships that we build. And what Don and I try to do here is not put deals together at this event. We come here to build relationships and get to know people. And I don't think I've ever put a deal together at JV Alert. But the deals came afterwards, and they've always been very, very fruitful. So you guys obviously have had a tremendous impact on me, of all positive. I count you amongst my friends, our friends, and it'll just be that way. It just doesn't go away. So you want me to call somebody else up?
I want you to call somebody else up.
Okay. Well, I just happened to have lunch with this guy today, and we've connected over the last few JV Alerts, and it looks like we are going to do something together in terms of his new book, and he may be playing a part in one of our upcoming SuccessNet summits, and that's Elsom Eldridge. So if you haven't met this guy, he's a wise man with a tremendous amount of experience, has a great book called The Obvious Expert. It's loaded with wisdom, loaded with lots of great ideas, and he's doing me the honor of allowing us to be, or at least have an opportunity to be in the revised one that's coming up. So we consider this event to be kind of a family event, because it feels like family. We come here to learn, we come here to build relationships, but it really does feel like family. So.
Wow. The opportunities to just keep growing everything we've been involved with, from the Obvious Expert business, if you will, on up, is just, and those who I've met here at JV Alert have just enhanced my life in so many ways. And to have to pick on, same problem, having to pick one person. That, I mean,
You're not excluding anybody.
No.
That's the important
This is
thing.
the funny thing about this, isn't it? That there are so many threads. How many threads were there from every person up there? How many people in this room have been affected by one of these people up here? How many people? Raise your hand. That's everybody here almost.
Yeah.
You know, that has been touched some way by just one of these people. Now imagine how many more people they touch. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess I'll go to the person that first invited me to come to a JV Alert. Would be somebody that's been mentioned a few times by many of us up here, and that's Mark Hendricks, who first invited me to a JV Alert live. And there's so many others, Ron and David and so many others, who've just made my life so much richer. Thanks to all of you. Hello, Mark.
Let's see, how many of these guys mentioned my name?
Do you want me to mention your name? I can do that.
Okay, there's none of them. And the reason I'm going to say that is because I'm going to mention Mark Goldman, Alan Bechtold, Carl Gleddy, Willie Crawford, all in rapid fires, so you can't stop me. Yeah, and those are kind of the guys that a few years ago we all kind of found each other, I suppose. And then from that, from some of the programs I've done would be people like Ron Capps, Mark White, Chris Lockwood, Dave Preston, Susan Preston. Who else? Am I missing? That's where I'll stop, I guess. So all you people need to come up here.
Come on up. Come on up. Come on up. You know, when you're talking about impact, you know, Willie Crawford was the first person that ever invited me to come speak at an internet marketing event.
You know, as a matter of fact, that's where you and I met.
We met at that,
That's right.
at that event.
Right.
Elsom and I met at that event.
Right.
And that was all because Willie Crawford decided to do something, right?
That's right.
Carl Galletti, where did we first meet? We met on the telephone first, that's right. I called you up because you didn't respond to emails. It was too newfangled for you back then.
Well, everyone on the stage has made an impact. People that I've known for a long time, like Mark Hendricks. He mentioned Alan Bechtold, who has got to come in the room. Come on,
Alan
Come on.
Bechtold, get up here.
Come on. Alan and I and my wife Terry, we ran a seminar a couple of years ago called the JV Summit of the Century, and it was a lot of fun, mostly because of hanging out with people like Mark and the others that we've had fun and spoken with and hung out till all hours of the night trying to get things ready. People like Frank came to that seminar too. Look at that. Frank, have you been to every internet marketing seminar out there? But it's funny, my wife Terry and I were building this and we were working alone. Like, I know a lot of people feel really isolated in internet marketing, and that's what we were doing for a long time. And the first seminar that I went to was Carl Galletti's Internet Marketing Super Conference in 2001, I think. So a lot of people have met through that, and I'm going to pass it over to Carl, who's already up on the stage.
Thank you. May I have your permission to tell two quick stories?
Sure.
That
That's
I think
what
are
it's about,
relevant. They
sure.
don't apply to internet marketing or here, but talk about impacting people. Someone impacted my life very much. He was in internet marketing. He's no longer alive, but oddly, and he died about 2 or 3 years ago, and I was looking through my old email. I may get to yours one of these days. And I came across a story that he sent to me. And just to show you how you can even affect people after you're gone from here. And there are these two quick little stories. First one is a pilot by the name of Butch O'Hare, who was a pilot in World War II, stationed out in the Pacific, and he went on a mission with all of the planes in the fleet. They were heading towards some sort of mission. And part of the way through the mission, he noticed that his gas gauge was down. Someone had forgotten to top off his fuel tank. And he figured out that if he'd gone to the whole mission and he wouldn't have had enough fuel to come back. So he told his squadron commander. Commander said, head back to the fleet right now. Don't worry about it. So they went on. He turned back and headed back. As he's heading back toward the fleet, he came upon a squadron of Japanese Zeros headed toward the fleet. They didn't know they were headed, but they were headed in that direction. So he attacked them. He shot all of his ammunition at them, and when he ran out of ammunition, he dove at them and tried to, disable their planes. They thought he was crazy, so anyway, they ended up heading off in a whole different direction. He finally went back to the fleet. He was shot up. His plane was all shot up. He landed, told his story. Half the people didn't believe him, thought he was just typing it up. But they had film on board all the planes that would, for training purposes and other things. And his commander saw the film and how much he had gone through. And he saved literally, I don't know how many thousands of lives, because the fleet was totally defenseless. They had no planes to defend them. And they would have surely lost probably hundreds, thousands of people, maybe some people who are responsible for us being here. Anyway, they gave him a Congressional Medal of Honor, and they named an airport after him, and that's O'Hare Airport in Chicago. Okay, that's end of story number one. Totally different story. A number of years earlier, Al Capone had this guy working for him, a lawyer named Easy Eddie. And the reason they called him Easy Eddie is because he was so good as a lawyer that it was easy for him to get Al Capone off of just about anything. So Al Capone rewarded him by giving him a lot of money, gave him a whole block to live on, had servants, anything he wanted. And Easy Eddie, was basked in this for a while, but then after a while he realized that the one thing he didn't have was a good name. And he had a little boy, and he wanted to give his little boy a good name. So he decided that he was going to testify against Al Capone. And he testified against Al Capone. He knew that that would put him in danger and possibly get him killed. And sure enough, a year later, they found him dead in an alley. And Easy Eddie was Butch O'Hare's father. So just to show you how things are impactful and connected. There are a lot of people on this stage who have impacted me, either by speaking at my conference or going to my conference, the same as I'm sure Ken feels about you, because if you guys are not here, we don't have a conference. So you guys are really the people that impact us the most, because you make it possible for this to happen. If you weren't here, we wouldn't be able to do this at all. And all of you guys here that I know, we've sat down or talked or whatever. And David and his wife, Susan, are two new ones. I just, ran into David, and we're going to do a JV together. We're going to do something together, They're wonderful people, and a lot of you out there. Where's Blake? Stand up, Blake. Blake and I met on the way over here. So actually, we met before then. He was at my conference.
Come on up.
Come on up, Blake. But I'm in the tram going from the airline, the plane to the terminal, and Blake's there and says, "Hi, remember me? I was at your conference." "Oh, okay. Hi, how you doing?" We start talking. "Yeah, we're going to do something together." It's like that's how it is. It's this networking that really happens. So I don't know who wants this. Does he get?
You want the mic?
Hi, my name's Blake Goodwin. I had been thinking a while I was going to be a poker dealer because I didn't really know exactly what I was going to do with my life. And thank God one of my friends, I was in poker school already, and he grabbed me and said, "What? You're going to spend 10 years, you're going to wake up and go, what the hell did you do? You need to get into internet marketing right now." And this was a few years ago. And so I did, and I started working for other big advertising firms and doing things for those guys. And I said, man, I wish I could do some of this stuff myself. I could make a fortune, And I went out scouring the internet. Probably spent $50,000 before I finally found something that was amazing, which was Traffic Geyser. And thank you, Frank, has made a terrific impact on my life. And
that's trafficgeyser.com.
It does to find it. And as I'm doing my stuff and I'm starting to make a lot of money, and I'm going, wow, this is incredible. I said I wish I could meet these guys, and that's when I got an email. I don't know how I got on this gentleman's list, Carl Galletti. I got an email saying, hey, there's going to be a big super conference, and I'm looking at the pictures, and I don't recognize anybody because I don't know anybody that's in the industry. But then I do see Frank Sousa and Mike Koenigs, and I went, oh man, I got to get into that. And I scraped up, at the time it was practically all the money I had in the world. I scraped that up and bought a ticket and said, honey, I'm going out there. I want to meet these guys. And the rest is history. I mean, it's just been very successful and just an amazing group of people. I'm really glad to be here. I'm going to be JVing with at least 5 people that are on this stage for sure, that I've already talked with. And I cannot tell you the value of the relationships that I've gotten from. It's definitely life-changing and will escalate my life to a completely new level. So thank you.
Here's what I'm going to, do you want to take one quick shot? Absolutely. Okay, come for it. Then what I'm going to do, and you guys can be thinking, I'm going to ask you I'm going to ask for volunteers that would like to say maybe how they've been connected to any of the people that are up here and how they have impacted your life. If you have a great story to tell about that, maybe it's something that just happened this week, and I want you to think about that, because I'm going to invite you up, and you can join us on the stage if you've been impacted by anybody by this up here.
So I was just going to say, this was my first JV alert. I had a lot of things on the calendar, a lot of things already booked. I was kind of overbooked. Ken contacted me and said, hey, can you show up? You know, everybody's asking about you. And then Willie really got on my case, and Nancy Crawford, who are huge in my life, and said, you got to be there. So we actually drove because it was such short notice. We couldn't book a flight the next day. So we're here out of this. Just so you know, we've got about 11 JVs going with some folks that are already here. It's just kind of overwhelming. But the thing that just empowered me the most are a couple that were in the audience before. They kind of took off now, but they're two just really regular, hard-working folks, Alan and Donna, and they own Info at Truth About Trucking, and they've been working very, very hard. And that I know of. They've got two what will be enormous JVs just from this event, which just makes me feel over the moon. They've been working, and this event was what brought them to that point. This is a major, major changing point in their life forever. That's huge, huge.
Thank you. Willie Crawford, you were mentioned about 20 times. Would you get up here? Since you were hiding out in the thing. Willie Crawford, the gentleman that invited me to speak at his event, actually got me started and imagining that I could even go to an internet marketing event. Your event was actually the first one that I ever attended, Willie, in my life. Wow. Yeah. And because he did that, and because I met people like Elsom, and I met people like Mark at that event, and a bunch of other amazing people, I had the vision, and the desire to do something like that myself. So it never would have happened if it hadn't been for Willie. But I am betting that out of the people that are left out there, that there are a couple of stories about maybe somebody's life that has been changed even this weekend. So if you have an interest in doing that, come up here and you can take the mic and you can talk about how you've been impacted. Yeah.
I just wanted to say something. The person who impacted me the most is, she's sitting in the corner in the purple shirt, Michelle.
Yeah.
Her smile every morning and her hard work and dedication, she made this happen along with Ken, and we thank you for that.
Great. She has had absolutely no impact on my life whatsoever.
Hi, Cherry Sigmund Longeschmieder. I would like to add, since the theme is impact, part of my connection to this group and JV Alert Live is the Impact Action Team that you haven't said a whole lot about. And there are several people on this and several in the audience. If you're there, not Felicia, I met Felicia through that, and now I have a personal friend, somebody I can talk to about business or personal things through the Impact Action Team, which I got on through first coming to JV Alert Live, meeting Ken. I wouldn't have been involved with that if I had not met you and Jeff and some of the other folks who are out there. And we went to Long Beach to Brendan Burchard's Life School and Ticket event, and I had a personal transformation there, not related to business at all. But had that not happened, had I not come to JV, had all of these people not met, three guys on a couch, you didn't have this event, I would not have come to a JV Alert Live. I would not have been on the Impact Action Team. I would have not gone to Long Beach. I would have not had that personal transformation. So thank you, everybody who had a piece in that, and I look forward to many more. So that's my piece.
Thank you. Anybody else? Very good. Got some up there? Yeah, come on up.
Hi, my name is Teresa from thesiteteacher.com. This is my second live event. However, my very fortunate first time coming into internet marketing was blessed by the presence of Ross Goldberg. And I don't know if he's in the room, but I have everything to thank to Ross Goldberg. He has brought me into this. He is the most wonderful person I have ever met. he has stepped in and helped me a lot. Through Ross, I actually got a chance to meet Frank Sousa, who has encouraged me in many, many things. And throughout this whole event, he actually introduced me to Paul through email, and I've learned a lot from practically just about everyone on this stage. And they have all impacted and changed my life greatly just by the things that I learned from them. And if you get a chance to speak to anyone on this stage and learn their skills, you will be set for life. You need to get with these people and take everything that they have to tell you to heart, because they've been there and they're doing it.
Thank you, Teresa.
And I'd like to thank Ken, too. He's a very giving and loving person.
Yeah, and come on, Alan, you can come up here. I just want to say one thing about Ross Goldberg. Ross Goldberg came to this event as a volunteer, and through that, he was inspired in a very, very short time to start his entire series and all of the people that have been affected through him. So, Alan Bechtel, did you want to say something? Somebody, they're pushing you. I don't know why. You're up next.
Because they're really big on getting me in trouble.
Is that what it is? Okay, you are in trouble.
It's nothing I did. No, I heard we were giving our impact story.
Yeah.
Who impacted me was Dale Carnegie. Goes back a ways. I'm sorry, I'm older than some.
Where did you meet him anyway?
I didn't get to meet him, and that's part of my story. I was actually fortunate as a young man working at a print shop. I was going to be a printer, but I wanted to be a writer.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate that my boss thought I was management material. He sent me to the Dale Carnegie course. Now, it didn't help me with names and faces. You know, it's like how to, I was already winning friends and influencing people. But the public speaking training, there was one aspect of it I'd love to pass along to everybody that broke it down. Is there anybody here who's afraid of public speaking?
Yeah, me.
Okay, let's melt this down. I mean, I'm serious. Even if you do public speaking, you know what they made us do? They set one lady at the front of the room. All the men had to line up and one at a time get on one knee in front of the class and say, "Daisy Mae, I love you." And when we got done, they reversed the roles. And then, and at the end of that, the teacher said, "Okay, you've all already made total asses out of yourselves. There is nothing else to be fearful of about public speaking." Every one of us went on we've stayed in touch. Every one of us has enjoyed public speaking because we got it out of the way. What's that? No, you don't. That's not happening yet.
It continues to this day.
Well, whether I made that my trademark or I was no longer afraid of it, I'd say I embraced it, okay? But the point I wanted to make was, how long had Dale Carnegie already been dead?
A long time.
And he became one of the most influential people in my life through his books and the training that continued after him. So I then determined that public speaking and publishing is how I will affect the world, even if they don't even realize it till I'm long gone or appreciate it. That's pretty cool, right? That's what I wanted to say.
All right.
Mark White from Living Abundantly, my partner and wife, Sandy, she's sitting at the table. But we wanted to thank Ken for his servant's heart to allow us to understand the impact we have on people. I was just thinking here, going down the line, we've met Frank Sousa this weekend, and yet his graciousness and kindness towards us has come through, has encouraged us for our first major product launch, which is March 15th. Alan Bechtel, we met him 3 seminars ago up in Orlando at Michael Penland's conference. Jeff Wellman, Sandy and I met him there, and he's helped us over the phone and given us some preliminary counsel. I've just met this young man today, but Ron Capps has spent freely of his time to help us to understand and to get ready for social networking and Web 2.0. I don't know. Mark Hendricks, we're a part of the ISS group here, and we've been to our first conference in Atlanta, and it's helping us get our platform in place and our mastermind group. Elson, we haven't met yet, but he's a local Floridian here in Orlando. Willie Crawford, of all men, who is as busy as anybody, has spent 2 significant times on the phone with me gratis to help me understand, Sandy and I to get prepared. We have significant business experience offline, but the online world, as you know, can be very confusing and scary even for those of us who have a significant amount of business experience. David and Susan Preston, we met at the first Michael Penland conference, and they have graciously spent time with us by phone, helping us through and introducing us to other potential joint venture partners. Carl, we just met. We're looking forward to meeting him. And then there's some people that aren't even on the stage. Bob, the teacher, who yesterday graciously came over to Sandy and I and started to help us through some of the information that we weren't aware of, and his kind nature and stuff encouraged us today to sign up for his teleseminar, and knowing we can do that certainly within the next 30 days. And again, to cap it off, Ken, thank you so much for being courageous and sitting on the couch with Frank.
That is a scary thought. Anybody else?
There are a lot of people on this stage who have had a huge impact on me and on my husband. I'm Judy Jacobs with Wealth Restoration Institute. I'm going to start at the beginning with Willie. And I've never met Willie until yesterday. And when I walked up to him and said, I know Cindy Parker. And Cindy Parker is the one who introduced me to Mark Hendricks and Elsom, who these two gentlemen have had a huge impact, and I don't know that they know that, but I did tell Elsom yesterday that, you know, he was the obvious expert, and it made me realize that, you know, everybody has some expertise, and he was the one who I had to go home and kept wondering what kind of an expert I was, and it finally came, and I have to owe that to him. And then Jeff Wellman doesn't even know this, I suppose, but I heard your story at $1 Million March last year, and so I said, well, golly, I guess I can do it too. Well, you know, he's the only other one here who's as old as I am. And no, he's not. He's younger than I am, but that's okay. Dr. Ron this summer, who just totally lasered the message. I'm a slow study. It takes me a while. And Ken, I read your book. Yeah, I came across you at $1 Million March too, and I read your book, and you made me realize that we do have to make a difference. And, you know, we had kind of a bad story there for a while, but we've turned that story into a good story. And it's because you said we've got to make a difference.
Hello, my name is Mark Strickland, BizOps on Twitter. All these people have touched my life in one way or another. I've been on the internet for several years promoting other people, not really concerned about building myself or promoting myself until this weekend, really. I realized that I can do that I am somebody that I can make an impact on other people. It's not about the money. Money's irrelevant. That'll come later. If it don't come at all and I've helped somebody, that's even better. My number one mentor right now is Ross Goldberg. I went through his virtual masters. Unfortunately, he's not in here. He should be up here. I went through his virtual masters with him every day I was there. I helped him out in any way I could, copying chats, things like that, moderating the chat room. Willie, I've followed Willie, everything he does for a while. Unfortunately, I don't buy everything he do, but yeah. Mark Hendricks, his Christmas time event. I love it. I'm there, I check out everybody that's there, everything that's put up. I'm really thankful for the new friends I've met this weekend and that I'm building relationships with. Nick, James DeLong, Eric Stafford, and my new mentor that's going to take me to levels I never thought I could achieve, Bob Seeger. I'm really, really looking forward to growing with you, buddy. And Ken, I want to thank you for having me here.
My pleasure, man. Thanks. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. Michael,
there's more.
Too.
Michael, haven't you been touched by anybody up here?
Hey everybody, my name is Jack Bastide, and the person that affected my life up here now is actually the guy that actually invented the internet, and I'm not talking about Al Gore, I'm talking about Willie Crawford over there. I actually met Willie about 4 years ago. I was on his email list, and I wanted to get his attention, kept sending him emails, and he didn't respond. So I said, well, let me send him a greeting card. So I actually sent him a greeting card, and he called me up. That's how we first met. Now, one thing that Willie taught me, that I've learned from him, one thing he said to me early on was when he first got started, he was trying to do the business, the internet marketing totally on his own. And it's when he started attending live events and building relationships, that's when his business started to take off. So I've went to a few in the past. I've probably been to 2 or 3 of these things, but I decided 2009 I'm really going to start networking a lot at these live events. So this is my first JV Alert, and met a ton of really, really good people. Also, another thing that Willie, you don't even know this, Willie, but I've known about Twitter for about 1.5 years, and I always thought it was kind of ridiculous. People just go on there, hey, I just walked my dog, hey, I'm eating pizza. I just didn't get it, right? And so then Willie told me he was on Twitter, and I said, well, if Willie's on Twitter, there must be something to it. So I went on there, and this was about 3 or 4 months ago. Right now I got about 18,000 followers. I've met tons of really good people. In fact, a lot of people here. I don't know where's Dave Rocks? Dave Rocks. Well, he's gone. Anyway, so I've actually, before I even came here, I prearranged to meet probably about 15 to 20 people on Twitter, and I said I was going to meet them here, and I've met all of them. It's been really good. So, and I expect 2009 is going to be huge because I'm going to start going to a lot of these events. So, thank you.
I'm Inez Bracy with Over 50 Fine and Fancy. And I just want to thank Ken McArthur. I thought I had a big vision, but when I listened to him the other day, I realized that I was not thinking big enough. So Ken, thank you for that. And since I've been here, I've had the pleasure of talking with Mark Hendricks and so many others of you. And Ron, thank you for all that you do. So thank you so much, Ken, for this event.
I know you.
I'm Margaret Hampton, Mark Hamp on Twitter. And this whole group has touched my life. I actually came last year to my first JV Alert, and it was through Terry Shearer, my dear friend, and we partnered on something. And Terry got here I think it was through both, Ron Capps and Mark Hendricks. And I met Terry just prior to that at my very first conference with Gina Gaudio-Graves. Gina put us together. And she's not up here, but it all starts to link. And then Ken introduced me to Ross Goldberg. And Ross has been just an incredible hand-holder support, mentor across the board this whole year. And it was a tough year with a lot of things on the personal front, and Ross was always there. And we go through, Frank Sousa is absolutely fabulous, and I'm finally getting going on Traffic Geyser. And last year, at our first JV Alert, Jeff Wellman was the one who took the newbies under his wing, and he was tremendous support on everything that was going on. And it's hard to say, just about everybody here, it would take too long to say it all, but there are about, actually 5 joint ventures in the works now among this group. And one of my favorites who I met too, you're not supposed to have favorites, but Rhonda Del Baccio, the story lady, and we're going to be doing some things together. We met last year, and it's just been a wonderful year of growing in our relationship. And I met Gina Carr, and we're going to be doing some great things, and it goes on and on. Ken, thank you. Ken has been the best, and it's your heart, your love, your generosity that has been really the glue that got this whole impact going, and the impact is massive. It would take years and fill umpteen books to tell the story, the impact of all of these people. And this sweetie right here, Willie Crawford, you know, everyone, thank you. Oh, and Teresa.
So this is Rhonda Del Baccio, the Story Lady, at the Story Lady on Twitter. Ken, when I first held your book, when I bought it from your Amazon bestseller campaign, and knowing what the blood, sweat, and tears we had been through over that manuscript, that's why I always laugh whenever he says, "Has anyone read my book?" I'm like, yeah, several times before it was published.
She read it 100 times before it was published.
But I held it in my hands, and I just cried, and I felt so grateful to be part of sharing the impact. If you want to have a greater impact, touch more lives. That's what your book is doing. It's wonderful. So many people here. Certainly you have had an impact on me. Margaret Hampton is wonderful. Gina Gaudio Graves, one of my very favorite people in the whole world. Michelle Alvarez, another one of my very favorite people. We're acting like we've been friends since we were 3, which we haven't, but she's wonderful. And so many things, really, if you want to make a bigger splash, a bigger impact, serve more people.
Nick Blackman. Short story. About a week ago, I lost my job, and didn't think I'd be able to make it here to the conference because of it. But Mr. Ken here was gracious enough to allow me to come and volunteer. And I tell you, this has been really this has just been the best conference I've ever been to. And I can't say I've been to a lot of them. I've been to like 3. But the people that I've met here, I'm gonna take to the bank, man. I mean, you guys rock. And biggest influencer, this man, where's he at? Ross Goldberg. Ross Goldberg. Well, anyway, you guys are great. I appreciate it. Everything. Thanks.
Where's Gina? And where are they hiding up?
Just real quick. I went back and talked to Gina's husband, and I asked her if, I went out and said, "Gina, can you come inside?" And she said, yeah, and could you get in here? Obviously, I'm impacted by this entire event because it's my very first one, and I enjoyed it. And when Michelle sent me an email saying, "Hey, if you get a product, send us your sales page," I said, "No, absolutely not, because I'm not selling anything at this event." And the reason was because I wanted to be surrounded by people like this. I mean, Frank, Ken, everybody, But it was, when I got to this event, I saw somebody standing outside, and I'm like, who is that over there? And my heart just sank to my stomach. Years ago, my wife gave me a computer, and I had cancer. And the impact that this woman had on my family saved our lives, literally. And we created a multi-million-dollar company in 6 months because she took me under her wing and she didn't even know it. When you connect with somebody that makes you recall all of those emotions and feelings in one time, that's what this is about, okay? This woman deserves the biggest round of applause I've ever felt. I love you, I really do. Woo, personal development coaches cry a lot, guys.
Actually, Bob, you really deserve that round of applause, because there's a big difference between Bob and a lot of other people who heard the same words come out of my mouth, and that is you really took the action on those words. So for all of you who have been here all weekend, that's what I would do leaving this room. Remember Bob. It's only as good as the action you take when you walk out of this room. One of my favorite sayings comes from one of my mentors, Kevin Nation, which is, winners take imperfect action while losers are still perfecting the plan. It's all about what you do with what you just learned. So we owe it to Ken for bringing all of us here to help impart that wisdom to you. But do yourselves a favor and really take action. And thank you, Bob. Good job.
First of all, Ken, I mean, it's been just an amazing ride since the first time I met you. I mean, it's this is my third Orlando JV Alert. But before that was an email I got from, I think it was Mark Hendricks, that took me to my first workshop. And it was my first live event, and this was 2006. I had just stopped playing computer games for the last 4 or 5 years straight, just basically put my business on hold, and I was playing computer games, and that was it. I was just going to town working 2 jobs, and any spare time I had, it was those computer games. And I said, well, I got to go check out this workshop. So I went to that. I met Mark, I met Willie, and we were sitting out by the pool in the evenings after the workshop, and I learned more during that time after than during the actual event. But that woke me up to, I need to be at events, because that's where everything happens. So when Ken sent an email saying, are you coming to JV Alert? And at the time, I was still broke, because I just stopped playing computer games, so I wasn't making any money. So I replied back. I said, Ken, I wish I could go, but there's no way I'm going to be able to fund this. I just came back from a workshop where I basically spent all my money to get there. So I get an email back that says, well, we need helpers. So don't let the money be a situation that keep you from doing it. So, all right, I'll help. So I figured I'll just go there, and if I'm supposed to be there, the money for the hotel will manifest itself. And the day before I left, so I came into just enough money to pay for the hotel. So that was intense right there, and I was really happy about that. But then the next event that I went to, again as a helper, was the Get Your Product Done event, where I met Jeff Wellman, and we kind of built a relationship there because he's close to my age, and it's like I got to see him, I got to see him grow, because the first time I met him, he was, it's like I knew more about the internet marketing than he did, but he was making it happen, because at the time he wasn't, because he was just starting out, but I saw him grow, and then we contacted each other throughout the time, and stuff started happening well, he was doing really good, and I was starting to implement things, so things were progressing, and then we got on the Impact Action team together. And there came a time right after JV Alert in Philadelphia and before the Impact event where I was ready to just quit. I mean, I'd been under a lot of stresses at work. My house was falling apart, and I mean, I was tripping through, going through the hall, and stepping through holes in the floor and stuff like that. It was getting ridiculous. But on a mastermind call, I said, I don't know, things are just not going right. And Jeff said, hey, can I give you a call? And I said, sure. So we got on the phone together, and we talked for 3 hours. And basically what he said was, right now you're living in your situation. You need to be living outside of that. Just don't even look at where you're at. Look at where you're going to be. And I would not be retired from my job now if I would have quit right then. But because he gave me that vision to look away from where I was at, I wouldn't be here right now. So, Yeah, thanks. I mean, and the rest of y'all have all been a big impact on me too, because seeing everybody, knowing that, you know, hey, I just said I'm going to be quitting my job on October 31st. Well, I better do it. And dang if I didn't. So thanks.
Yeah. The Bobs sometimes have tear ducts opening up, so, you know, it's going to have to be if it has to be. I wanted to express my gratitude towards a few people. First, if you have learned from me in the past, I know there's a few of you in the room and behind me, I want you to know how much it means to me that you continue to do so. Those of you that trust me for the next thing that I'm doing, I really have wanted to teach all my life. So I've always wanted to also live vicariously through the successes of my students. I've become accustomed to seeing and helping foster a foundation that then grows and surpasses me quickly. And I want to continue to do that, so please feel free to do that. In order for me to continue teaching, I have to thank those that give me the opportunity to do so. And so I have to give, who has not been mentioned at all yet today, Ross Goldberg. A very big thank you to Ross because he took the first chance on me to speak from the stage. And I really appreciate that because that's what I need to do. I need to be teaching people, whatever the forum. And then, of course, Ken for giving me the second chance. But also because Ken introduced me to people at the first JV Alert. He has, I'm sure you see this now, all of you have met so many incredible people. I don't know of any other internet marketing event I've been to, and I've been to about 8 or 9 now, that have the quality and the mindset and the passion for life that this audience has. And that's Ken. That's the magnetism of what Ken brings together. So I want to thank Ken for that. And I want to thank you for taking anybody's lessons up here, or mine, and having the impact you're going to have on your audience. And I hope that you consider where you're going to be just a short time from now when other people are thanking you for the impact you have. And I believe all of us, especially me, I can speak for, I won't speak for them, but I think they'll probably agree that that is going to have, we're just going to be so grateful that you're able to do what you want to do and have the impact that you have. And it's not very far along away if it hasn't happened already. Thank you very much.
Ross, you have to come up. Your name has been mentioned 20 billion times.
Who was talking garbage about me? Let's go. All you guys sending out the girls, I'm going to get you off camera. All right, well, I didn't hear any of the raging praise, but I've had 8 people come and grab me by my belt loops and drag me into the room. So I know a few of you that might have said something nice about me, and I want to say thank you because you guys are why I do what I do. But there are people on this stage that have made it possible for me to do what I do. When I first started, I had nothing. I refused to work with people. I didn't understand the power of relationships. I did it all by myself. And it's funny because detractors, naysayers, they focus on the things that they may not know. But they forget that I built a business from a wheelchair to $500,000 in sales with no help. You'd think I might know a thing or two at this point, 3 years later? I've been studying so hard so I can help people. And I've got that passion because of the people that I surround myself with now. I'm a former gang leader, I'm a disabled veteran, and I was surrounded by human feces for most of my life. And I made a decision when I started doing internet marketing, information marketing, that I didn't want to be around garbage anymore. And I became friends with Ken because of his generosity. He let me come to the same JV Alert that Mike Savoy started at. I was a helper too. I couldn't afford it on a moment's notice. He gave me a week and said, okay, come on. I said, okay, honey, we got to sell one of the kids. I don't know how else I'm going to do it. I've got to fly to Orlando and stay in a hotel. So sold 2 of them so I'd have extra money. And I flew down to Orlando, and I started becoming friends with Frank Sousa. I became friends with Ken McArthur, and I started building these relationships. And these people are not my friends anymore. They're like my family. And we help each other nonstop. You think this ends here? Ken and I talk on the phone every month to 3. Alan Bechtold is one of my best friends. I talk to him all the time. We work together. Eric Stafford is like my brother. I'm moving to be closer to him. Harris Fellman, Liz Tomey. I could list off 50 people that I met at these seminars. Mike Filzane. Guys, I could talk for hours, and these people are my friends now, and I met them here. Ken gives us every inch of his heart, his soul, everything that he can. And I think, being the last person, we all need to give Ken a standing ovation and thank him for what he's done for us.
Thank you. I say it every time, and it almost can't come out. You make it possible for me to fulfill my purpose. Thank you. Okay, enough of that schmaltzy stuff. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a really, really quick break, and we're going to reassemble and we're going to answer the questions, and we're going to close things out. Now, here's what I want you to think about for just a second, just a couple seconds. We just had a pretty amazing group of impact, and I can tell you that that is not the entire impact. You could listen to every one of these people up here for about 10 hours and all the people that are interconnected and have impacted you. And I know that out there in the audience that didn't say a thing, there are people who were impacted in amazing ways. I really want to encourage you to do a couple of things. A couple of things. Number one, get out to a live event. If it's Mark Hendrick's event, or it's Ross Goldberg's event, if it's Michael Angier's event, Carl Galetti's event. Did you notice I have my competition here? I've raised part of my competition here. that it is so vital. I hope with all my heart that you will come out to the Impact event, because this is a part of my dream here. And at that event, you will see a huge vision. And I tried to make it as possible as I could for you to do that. And if you can see the vision for the cost of $97, I think I can get you that value back. So I would encourage you to do that if you can. And that holds true for the people on the internet. I know Michael has a link that's available. The price will go up. We will have a regular list price. This is not a come on kind of a market down thing. There is a regular price to this event, and it's going to be an incredible event. I really hope that you'll come out to it, because you will meet so many more of our family that weren't able to be here at this event. You know, this is a tiny subset of our family, because everybody can't make it every time. I hope that you will make the next one. Now let me say one more thing before we break for the thing, and then we're going to take some questions and stuff like that. We'll give you a quick stretch break, a bathroom break, and then we'll just come back and do a few minutes of Q&A. But I want you to consider that maybe you're a bit overwhelmed, a little bit sleep deprived, and that if you think that you've missed anything here in this session, if there maybe was something you did not remember, I don't know how your memory is, mine's getting really old. I would encourage you to get the DVD sets from these events because it will allow you to go back and to refresh your memory so that you didn't have to take 50 million notes, you know, so that you can, when you need to call out that information and that timing is perfect for you, that you can reach out and you can grab that information and have it right there on the shelf for you. I would encourage you to do that. And there are past events that are available now too. I've just managed through Don, Moran, would you just stand up for just a second? Everybody give him a huge hand of applause. Incredible, incredible man. He has met, the JV Alert Live videos for many years have not been available, although they have mostly all been taped through people that were totally incompetent at getting things done. And this gentleman has made it possible for you to have not just one, not just two, but 3 sets so far of past JV Alert Live event DVDs. So that is something that's going to be available to you. Watch for yourself in an upcoming Impact home study course. So who knows who may be there. Your story may be part of things that you can't even imagine right now. I know a lot of people mentioned Michelle Alvarez. She is, please don't turn and look at her because she doesn't like anybody to look at her. Do not photograph her. She wishes to become anonymous. Her name really isn't Michelle Alvarez. I don't know who she is. But I can tell you that she rules my life in a very, very important and crucial way. She defends me in ways that you cannot possibly imagine. And so if for any reason Michelle has offended you in any way throughout the thing, I want you to know that it is her incredible support of me. Because if anything comes between me and anything else, she's right there to protect me. I thank you, Michelle, for everything that you do for me. You are a huge blessing in my life. Would all the volunteers please stand up? There are a bunch of people that volunteered at this event, and I won't call you out by name, everyone, but give them a big hand of applause because they did a great job. Without your help, it couldn't be possible. Okay, everybody take about 10 minutes for a bathroom break and then come back. We'll assemble panelists, and if you could put your chairs back up, we'll take questions.